So I think we can start. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Career Development Talk. My name is Helena Branco. I'm a PhD student at the University of Porto, Portugal, and today, alongside my colleague Carlos Jesus from the University of Coimbra, I will be moderating this talk. It is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Joana Fernandes. She's a principal medical writing scientist at Johnson & Johnson Innovative Medicine, earned her PhD in Cellular and Molecular Biology from the University of Coimbra in 2014 and has been working as a medical writer since 2016. In today's talk, Dr. Fernandes will guide us through the various stages of pharmaceutical development and the career opportunities that exist at each step. She will also address key considerations for PhD students and researchers looking to make the transition from academia to industry. Before we start, I would like to remind the audience to put their questions in the chat box or to unmute yourself and ask the questions at the end of the talk, where we will have an open Q&A. Now, Dr. Joana Fernandes, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Elena and Carlos and the rest of the team for inviting me and having me today. Let me just share my screen. Here it is. Let me know when you see it. It should go into presentation mode soon. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
And can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So hi, everybody, or good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's a pleasure and a delight to have been invited to present to you today. I'll be talking about talking about some career paths in pharma. My presentation is not meant to be comprehensive, otherwise we would be here for days. The idea is to give you PhD students a better view of what's going on outside of academia, which is supposedly familiar to everybody, but not so much. We can not really say the same about industry in many cases. So welcome to this presentation. I hope you find it insightful. Before we start, I added this preface to the presentation. We'll shortly be looking at the roadmap so that you know what points I was wanting to cover. But the reason why I do these presentations and I accept these invitations to talk about this subject is because I've been a PhD student myself and a postdoc researcher myself, and I could see firsthand that science students, and you know this by yourselves, of course, science students are highly educated. They are trained by really, really good scientists with a lot of experience in the field. They're trained to think smart. They're self-motivated, ambitious, creative people, very used to problem solving. So you see all these science students with all these capacities and you think their future is going to be brilliant. But then what happens is many people, especially, and that's particularly bad when you think that I've been away from academia in the past decade and I still find the same gaps that I used to see myself when I was a student. Students seem to be unaware of what's outside, what's out there in the industry, which seems to be like a field away from where they live. And so that is a kind of a blind spot into what other potential scientific careers could be interesting for their futures and their careers. And so this lack of knowledge, I think, makes students feel inept, insecure, and worst of all, unqualified to anything beyond the bench research. And that is a really, really bad thing to have when we have science students with so many capabilities. So, you know, to have the two opposing things or sets of feelings within the same kind of person is something that really is a problem, a gap that I've been trying to fight on together with other people, of course, but that's something that I really want to have made my cause kind of in the last years. So again, as part of this preface, you'll all recognize these faces. They are highly rewarded, qualified athletes, apologies. And I just keep wondering, of course, these people, they didn't know what the future held for them when they started. They knew what they wanted. They knew what they were good at. They started being really disciplined about how they were going to get where they wanted to get. But are we doing the same with our scientists? And I believe that the answer currently is no. We are not training scientists for the real championship that is out there. I think we're training scientists with the best of research and knowledge, but then we leave them alone to figure out their future and how to use their skills, which is very anticlimactic, to say the least, dangerous as well. And so the other thing that I want you to think about as we unfold this presentation is, are we also looking for a job, or is it a career that we want? Because if we want the job, then we can find one anywhere doing anything science related or not. But when it comes to a career, it takes a little bit more planning and a little bit more effort. And so that's the kind of between the lines message that you'll see in this presentation. So here we are. The roadmap for today includes the preface, which we've just looked at, an introduction, a proper introduction. And then we're going to be very briefly looking at careers in science, careers in clinical development, and then a final set of slides to, again, briefly touch on how to enter the industry and the things you need to consider. Unfortunately, we won't have a lot of time to develop any of these points in depth, but I'll try to give you thinking points for your own research when you're trying to figure out what you want to do. And then obviously at last, we will have the Q&A. So a proper introduction. I've, of course, thank Elena once again for introducing me. You already know that my name is Joana. I work for J&J Innovative Medicine in oncology. This company is obviously very well known. It used to be known by another name, which was Janssen, that has recently changed. I'm a principal medical writing scientist. And like Elena also said, I have a PhD in cellular and molecular neuroscience. I did all my studies in Coimbra in Portugal, and I have a degree in biology. A little bit more about what is a medical writer will come later when we talk about careers, examples of careers. So our next point is something that I usually ask when I'm in a room full of people, full of students. And that is a very basic question, which is, what do you think about when you think about careers in science? And I've recently been doing a similar presentation in a university here in Portugal, and the answer is always the same. I don't know if anybody in the audience wants to take this one, or if it could
academia.
Be just, yeah, academia, people in lab coats or white coats. Obviously, that is the image that comes to our minds, and that's totally fine, because this is what we think about when we think about science. That is not the problem. The problem is that if you don't know anything beyond this immediate image, then there's a gap in your knowledge. And so I think like Barbara just made a really good segue to this slide. Academia is seen in many cases like some sort of enemy or adversary to the industry. And some people seem to talk about or to think about the industry like some sort of enemy, dark force, this unknown body of work that only people with money objectives in mind work for. I'd like to demystify that idea. First of all, I don't think that we should talk about academia versus industry. I'll be bold and I say that I find that really, really ridiculous. You cannot put aside two things that work together. And so I always make sure that I have this slide on my presentations because I want to emphasize that academia and the industry, they are parts of something that has the same goal. And so although both bodies will have different roles, they do support each other to make a system work. And there's a continuum of scientific roles in academia and in the industry that make this system work. And we'll be looking at this in a closer look shortly. The other reason why it makes no sense to talk about academia on one side and industry in the other is because they both stem from science. And so, not to be philosophical or anything, but I usually also like to have this short reflection about science where I ask the audience, what is science? What is it for? Who is it for? And what is it trying to achieve? What's the purpose? Why do we do anything about science? And I think that we all agree that science is a way to improve the lives and the health of living organisms, or especially when we're talking about clinical health sciences, that would be the end goal, to improve lives and our health. So that means that science is the means to an end, therefore a tool, and not an end in itself. And so if it's a means to a tool, it doesn't make sense to break academia and industry into two different parts, because they help each other and they continue each other. And this is an example that I usually show as well. This is, of course, the package leaflet. That's the official name of this piece of paper that comes with every single drug in the world. This is, of course, the one for one of the most famous drugs in the world, paracetamol. This is a longer sheet than what I have here, but you've used it for sure several times before. And the information, sometimes we ignore it, especially when we are very used to a certain drug. But in every case, we always have very relevant information in these package leaflets. So they talk about what the drug is for and what it is, and what we need to know before we take it, how to take it, and the possible side effects. And these are only 4 sections in this folded paper that we frequently look at. And like I said, most of the time we will ignore this information, or because, for many reasons, because we already know how to take it or what it is, or because our doctor instructed us on this and we don't have to go through this piece of paper. But this is symbolic because it includes the major effort that so many people with different backgrounds, expertise levels have put into this. And this is the goal. The goal is to come up with solutions that will improve our lives. And so it was all started, developed, and ended because these package leaflets and drug development never really ends. It all happened with science and the multiple careers outside or inside a lab bench that was performed by many people. And so I like to think of science as a teamwork, of course. So and the team will obviously try to achieve the goal, which, like I said, is to improve our lives and our healthcare. And so in this image, I'm very focused on clinical research. So we have the researcher, the clinical lead, the medical writer, the MSL, the CRA. Don't bother knowing this now because we will cover these roles later. Statistician, all different people with different degrees, different PhDs, sometimes with or without post-graduations, expertise levels, all different, but they all bring something to the means so that we can all achieve one common goal. And in drug development, I don't know if you can see the whole figure, because in my screen some of it is cut, but drug development is in a summarized version. It includes all these steps. So first of all, you have the basics of everything. So drug discovery, preclinical research, which I highlighted because usually this is where academia fits. the clinical trials, which I don't know if you know, but I'll cover these really briefly by saying that we have different phases depending on the sample size for each study and the type of objectives that we want to assess. So for instance, phase 1 are smaller studies with usually healthy volunteers, not always the case, but usually it's healthy volunteers. For phase 2, you'll have a few more participants, and it's supposed to be a proof of concept in patients. So this study will include some patients. And a phase 3, of course, is to a confirmatory study to confirm the efficacy and safety of a specific drug in a specific population, patient population. And then after drug approval, the drug is, of course, released on the market, but the safety checks continue. So those will be phase 4 studies or post-marketing studies that are meant to confirm that when we go from, a limited phase study, however, a limited clinical study, apologies, however numerous is its population, it's still a limited sample size. So when we launch the drug in the market, we need to make sure that in other types of populations within the same indication, but other types of patients, we have no safety signals, no unexpected safety signals. So, pharmas don't just release a drug on the market and then forget about it. That's not the case. And so again, this is to tell you that, as you can see, but with the preclinical research and all the rest, academia and industry are really sisters working together for a common goal. So again, when I ask what scientific roles do you know, I really like this figure here from someone I follow on LinkedIn. Usually we know the jobs of our parents, the job of people who live with us, our friends. We know very well low or even high skill jobs that are part of our life, or like I said, jobs of our friends and neighbors. But for the biggest of it, we don't know the jobs we never heard about. And my favorite part is jobs that haven't been created yet, because this is my favorite part, because it means that this continuum of scientific roles is ever growing. It's a living thing on its own. And we have sometimes we're bombarded with information about what AI is going to take away from us in terms of jobs, but there are so many jobs that are being created right now and will be to face the progress we have in pharmaceutical companies and in other industries as well. So I really like to talk about this, because it means that there's always something we can do, and there's always something we can apply our skills and our expertise. Hopefully, after the next slides, you'll know a few more scientific roles than just a researcher on a lab bench. This is a figure that I took from an article that I read a couple of years ago. There's the reference here if you want to take a look. This is a very simple chart, and for the purposes of this, I like to use it for the purposes of this kind of presentation, because the idea is not to give a comprehensive view, it's just to give an overall idea of what's out there. So for the sake of this conversation, let's say we have 4 domains: the academics, the business, the communication, and then the finance. But this is parallel to academia, to the industry. It's another example of how both things intertwine in terms of making science go forward. So for instance, in academics, you'll see, what you usually are more familiar with, like lab managers, postdocs, the professors, assistant professors, etc. And universities also have sometimes program directors or course directors, human resources, bigger universities have career development departments to help their PhDs plan their future, etc. So this is the kind of thing that you're you'll be most used to. And then in business, we have, the very famous startups or biotechs that requires a founder, an executive, project managers as they become bigger, and certain tasks have to be allocated. And they also sometimes perform research on their own, so they have scientists. The difference between academia and this kind of business model is that the incentive is different. In academia, the incentive is to produce articles for manuscripts for publishing, but these more business focused examples, their incentive is to create a product and put a product out in the market for use, of course. And then in the communication part of this chart, which is in this case the biggest, we have many things. I won't go into detail here. We have very different sorts of writer, and I wish we had more time to go through this, because I get asked so many times if a science journalist is the same thing as a medical writer, and if it's the same thing as a journal editor or a manuscript writer. They're not, and I will just say that they're not, because the audience is different and therefore the requirements are different. But we also have sales, marketing, consultants, specialists that assist the pharmaceutical industry in their respective regards. And then we also have this finance part of the chart, which is very much focused on funding agencies, capital, managing grants, and that feeds academia and also the industry. So it's a continuum, like I said before. And this figure here is basically a parallel of the figure before, because we have all those things feeding into these stages, these 5 stages that I've chosen to use here. So as you can see, because in every of these stages, we have so many possibilities in terms of careers, we can say that careers in science and in drug development, this is a world of possibilities. So I think everyone can find their niche depending on what they're like and what they like and what they can offer. And I've recycled this slide from another presentation that I gave, where I was showing examples. These are all except one are Portuguese. They studied in the same university as I did, or in most cases, we at least found each other's ways in the lab. And then we all, having similar backgrounds, we ended up in following different pathways within drug development. So you can see it's really easy to, it's a good exercise to look at your friends and contacts and people that you know in science and try to map them in this chart so that you can, or if you don't know anybody, try to find people who do that kind of job so that you can network with them and find out what they do, because that is the first thing to, or one of the first things one should do when we're trying to understand what a certain job entails, what is it like, and if we might like it. This is all very attainable now. This is one thing that I like in the world of today, is that it's not only, like I said before, drug development is not only a world of possibilities, it is so even more so for global citizens. And in most cases, we don't even have to go anywhere anymore. For instance, when I started working as a medical writer, I decided to move to England and spend a few years there. But nowadays, it will be, in certain cases, of course, it will be more possible than it was before to get a job, a remote job, without ever going to a specific country. That's not always the case, of course, and that's not always the case for every kind of career within drug development, but it is possible. It exists for certain cases. So, of course, you might be wondering what's next for me. So hopefully, whenever I give these presentations, I'm always hopeful that one day I'll be asking you if you mind that I use your figure, your photo in one of my future presentations with your expertise and the area that you decided to follow, because we will be touching on this by the end of the presentation, but for now, the only thing that I can really say that I think makes the difference is that you really, when looking for your future career or the potential future career, things that you're excited about and make you wonder if you'd be good at and happy at it, is that you think about what you as a person are like and what drives you. That makes total difference. It makes a complete difference in my time when it was time for me to make a move and make a change. And it keeps making difference when people sit down and think about, instead of thinking, okay, I need a job now, if they think about themselves first, what am I like, and what I find enjoyable outside and inside of science, that is a good way to start. But we'll get there later in this presentation. And last year I was at a career fair, and I was asked so many times what J&J could do for them. And I tried to say this in a way that made sense. It's not, this is not about J&J or any other company. This is about how important it is to change the mentality of PhD students or master students. So we've been trained. We have been given knowledge at the university. We now obviously want to look for a job. But nobody's going to hire us because we need a job. They're going to hire us because we are the most suitable candidates for them to achieve their goals. And so I really like this saying by John F. Kennedy. He said, you might know it, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And that is a complete change in mentality that I think will make a huge difference in your lives going forward when you're looking for a job. Please don't approach businesses or whoever it is you want to work for by, so what, how can you help me? Because that will take you nowhere. What you want to know when you reflect on who you are and what drives you is, okay, so this is me, and I am going to use this to sell myself. And I don't mean this in a bad way. When I say sell myself, is I'm going to explain to you why I'm an asset to your team and why I would help you achieve your goals, because you're going to invest in me, and I will be investing in you as well, because I will be giving you my time, my effort, my work. But there needs to be an incentive from both sides. And this word incentive is really, really something you'll want to keep thinking about. For them, and with them I mean whoever is hiring, it is not if you're a nice person or if you're really looking for a job and you've tried 100 times and you've failed and it's a pity that you haven't found anything. It's not about that. It's about whether you're good or not to help me achieve my goals as a company. But we'll get, like I said, we'll finalize this presentation with a little bit more on that, but just keep these two things on the top of your head when you start looking for your career. And this makes a really good segue, I think, into our next few slides, which will be examples of careers in clinical development. So how can you help? And to know how you can help, you need to find out what's out there and think about whether you like it, whether you think you can imagine yourself doing it. And if you can actually think about yourself doing it and enjoying it and being good at it. So first of all, we'll address what I think is drug development in everyone's minds, the same way that everybody will reply to the question, what do you think of when you think about science? People will say, someone in a lab coat, in a lab. Every time I talk about drug development, this is what people tell me they think about. So there's research and development. We come up with some chemicals, some drugs. We produce the medicines. We check the quality control. We pack it. We send the finished product to the pharmacies, and bam, that's it. And then us and consumers will obviously use it. uh, fortunately, this is drug development entails a lot more than this. Again, we don't have time to go through every single aspect of it, but I decided to simplify things and give you a quick overview of a few job titles that have become really popular recently, and that I thought might be of interest to you. So in the context of a clinical trial, let's say this obviously is a road, but all these jobs, all these people with these jobs, they work together daily. So it's not like I don't want you to look at this slide as stage one and then stage two and then stage three and nothing ever goes back. That's not the way it works. I just wanted to show a road where we go from the discovery of a product that will become a drug in the future until its approval and until the goal, which is the patient using it. And so all these jobs here in the middle, they will work together on a daily basis to make it happen, to go from point A to point B. So let's start with this one, Clinical Research Associate or CRA. These are the, sorry, my voice is not in its best shape today, so it might be faltering at times. CRAs are the contact between pharma and investigators at hospitals. So when we have a sponsor, a pharmaceutical company sponsoring a clinical trial, they have allocated people to go there to the hospitals that are included in this trial, in the study, and make sure that everything is being conducted according to the protocol. So are the patients receiving the right amount of drug and at the right time? And are the assessments planned in the protocol being conducted at the right time, the right way? And so they are kind of the police officers of a clinical trial. They make sure that everything is going according to plan. So and they go in these CRAs, they have a lot of traveling in their schedules because most times they're not even responsible for just one single study. They sometimes oversee, a few studies, not necessarily related. They might be one day in Edinburgh, the other in London, the other in Lisbon. So they work like this. So they oversee the progress of the trial. And like I said, they make sure that everything is being followed according to the protocol and the legal requirements for a specific study. They also verify the quality of the collected data, because the last thing you want is to have patients on a study. We're drawing blood from them to analyze specific things, and we're submitting them through a treatment to, it could be an oncology treatment or other kinds of treatment. So we're dealing with patients' lives. They're going there on purpose, and it's their health, but it's also a study. So we obviously want to collect their data and with quality. We don't want to jeopardize the whole thing by doing a lousy job. Another person that is very much ingrained in the progress of a clinical trial is a data manager. So what they see is, like I said before, the protocol for a clinical study, which details everything that will happen and how and when in a clinical study. It includes a set of assessments that the hospital staff will have to carry out for the study. And so the data manager, he builds the study questionnaire and the database where all data from the patients will be collected and stored. And he's responsible, therefore, for the collection, the integration, and the availability of the clinical data. He makes sure that everything that is being added to the database makes sense and has been done the right way, so that by the end of the study, there have been no errors in study data. Another role is the biostatistician. This is an easy one. You can imagine what they do. They plan the statistical analysis and the sample size at the start of the study. So they help the rest of the team to come up with the statistical analysis structure that will be used to analyze the data that will be collected. And after the study is done, they will perform the statistical analysis and help interpret the data. The regulatory affairs scientist is the contact between the pharmaceutical company and the regulatory health authorities. So we're talking about the EMA, the FDA. I have a slide here with a few examples. Obviously, the FDA in the US and the European Medicines Agency in the EU are the most famous, but we also have others in Japan, England, etc. These regulatory affairs scientists, they ensure that all documents, all communications, all studies, interactions with these regulatory bodies, all communication essentially is done according to the regulatory requirements. And I know that the word regulatory kind of makes us turn off our ears sometimes because it's not a really nice word and it makes us think of boring things, but this work is incredibly relevant and important because these are the people that will be communicating with the FDA or the EMA and then feeding their conversations to the rest of the team so that a clinical trial is conducted under the expected requirements. Okay, I've shown this one. And then we also have the medical writer who I like to think is obviously one of the most important people in the clinical development team. I was thinking, I need to say something else, but basically medical writers, they write the documents that support clinical development. And that is the protocol for the study, the clinical trial, the report with the results of what happened at the clinical study, and other documents that accompany clinical development, but obviously also the body of work that will become the dossier at the end of a clinical development program where we put everything we know, preclinical and clinical and safety and efficacy and how we manufacture the drug. We put everything we know about a specific drug in one dossier and submit it to the health authorities for approval. There are different types of medical writers. Like I said before, what varies is the audience, and therefore, if the audience is different, so will be our work as writers. Obviously, as a communicator, we need to be really good at communicating, and we need to deal with a lot of scientific and technical knowledge. So most of us are former scientists as well. And because it makes sense to talk a little bit more about medical writing with me being one. Like I said, medical writers are kind of a centerpiece because all the jobs that I presented before, the clinical research associate, they contribute with their expertise and their work. And then the data manager, the statistician, the clinicians that follow and make sure that the study makes sense, everything, all these other teams, they communicate, interact with us medical writers so that we put everything together in a document. And it has to be something that makes sense and that tells the story properly, because then it will be submitted to the health authorities. And like I said, the last thing you want is to have a full body of work that required years of investment in time and in money, patients' lives, to then jeopardize everything by writing something that makes no sense or that is not clear, is not accurate. You obviously don't want any of that. So medical writers, like I said, in most cases, they're former scientists. They have a scientific mind. They need to understand complex scientific concepts in any field. In my case, I work in oncology, so that's my area now. We need to explain ideas in a clear, logical way, analyze large volumes of information, because these data that come from clinical trials, we will be analyzing them not by ourselves, but together with the rest of the team. But then it's up to us to summarize and present it in a written form that makes sense for the health authorities, and nobody's going to do that for us. Obviously, as a scientist, as a writer, but as a scientist as well, you need to distinguish between good and bad science and recognize biases. This is what I call jokingly the shopping list of perfection when you want to become a medical writer. I'm not going to go through all of these. Obviously, you need to speak excellent English and need to be well organized, because the point of you're this point of contact with many different people like I showed. So you need to organize this input of information from other members of the team and make sure that that is reflected on your documents. So you need to be able to coordinate your activities and work in a team to make sure that everything is aligned. And finally, the other example role that I wanted to show you, and this is the medical scientific liaison, or MSL, also very popular these days. This is of the set of examples that I brought to you today, this is the only one that whose role is, let's say if I can go back to the, oh no, I have it, sorry. I can move to the next slide. So MSLs are the only ones from this set of examples that come after approval. So all these jobs, they work together towards approval. And then once the drug is approved by a health authority, then it's on the market and then it can be used. And what medical MSLs do is they make the bridge between the pharmaceutical company and the field where the drug is going to be used. So the idea is that this is not to be confused with promotional sales role. The idea is not for MSLs, they don't go into doctors' offices or hospitals to give goodies with branded stuff to promote the drug. No, they talk to the doctors that will actually use the drug to find out if the drug is being used the same way it was planned to be used. So they are, like I said, the bridge between pharmaceutical companies and the doctors and the expected population that will be using this drug. And therefore, there need to be experts in a specific therapeutic area. And they feed the results of these interactions with doctors, they feed it to the company so that the company can tailor or fine-tune the way the drug is being developed and the way it's being used. So it's a very important role to make sure that what we have produced as a pharmaceutical company is being used the right way, or the way we have planned it to be used. There's a lot of traveling expected, as you can imagine. They need to attend conferences, and they need to communicate with key opinion leaders in a specific area. So they need to be really good communicators as well. And so like I've shown you before, these are just examples of jobs that work together towards the same goal. For the final set of slides in this presentation, I thought it would be important to talk briefly about how we enter the industry when we are fresh off academia with a PhD in our pocket. So like I said before, you need to think of the incentive from the other side. And the question is, why would they hire you? Obviously, we need to start by getting to know the opportunities. This is a slide that pretty much covers it. We need to understand the industry that we're interested in, get to know their departments. So like I showed you, are you more into statistics? Are you more into regulatory things, clinical, more into safety, more into medical writing, that kind of thing? And then consider your area of interest. And then within that area of interest, research specific roles that might appeal to you. But how do we do this? Because it's very nice to say you need to think about who you are and what you like, but how exactly do we do this? So I like to call this a wheel of self-assessment that basically has three parts. One is about who I am, the other is what I can do, and the other is what I'm headed. And we need to do this constantly. This assessment. So to start with the who I am part of this wheel, this is obviously including our interests, our strengths, what our personality is like, our values and passions. It's a crucial assessment to make sure that who we are aligns with the career that we're going to invest in. Because the idea is not, like I said before, if you want to find a job, then that shouldn't be a problem. But if you want a career, then that is something that is prolonged in time, that a career is something that progresses. And if it's in progress, then you're making informed decisions, ideally. So it needs to be something that fulfills you, that drives you, that makes you feel passionate about it, if you're going to invest in it and spend time doing it. So mostly it's a question about what aspects in science or in general do you like. For instance, if you're a shy person and you tell me that you want to become an MSL who travels a lot, needs to talk a lot, needs to do a lot of argumentation and conversations with so many different people, then maybe I could think, well, if you're a shy person, it's not impossible, of course, but you'll have to develop some strategies. Or if you hate traveling and you want to become an MSL or a CRA who are amongst those who travel more, then maybe you might enjoy the actual job, but you hate this other part that is so important for it, which is traveling. So perhaps you might find a similar joy in a similar job, but that doesn't require so much traveling. So this is just a very general example of how who we are and what we like can deeply interfere with how fulfilled and passionate we will feel with our career of choice. And there are several tools that allow you to or help you think about the kind of person you are. These tools that I only chose one. It's one of the most recent, but there are several. If you go online and look for personality type questionnaires, you'll find some. The idea is mostly to give you, I like these tools because they give you an insight into, based on your answers to a questionnaire, of course, they give you a little bit of insight of what you are like. And for some of us, you read those, you read the final result and you think, I'm like this. Or you can go, oh, I've never thought about this way. I am proactive, or I am this and that. And that gives you material to work with, especially when you're preparing a cover letter. You need to know who you are selling, and you're selling yourself, so you need to know yourself really well. So this is a kind of tool that will allow you to understand your personal strengths, your working style, and like I said before, that will be a huge help in finding a matching career. And when I say matching career, I mean something that makes you fulfilled, feel happy and productive and fulfilled. So the second part of the self-assessment wheel is what I can do. And this is based on the skills and experience that we have gained so far. So you'll see that you obviously by now know that you need to have soft skills and hard skills. So soft skills are behavioral skills, things that we are and behave like, things we can do in terms of our personality. Hard skills are things that we can do in terms of technology, so technical knowledge required for a specific job. An example, this is off the internet, of course, the top 10 soft skills are communication, self-motivation, leadership, responsibility, teamwork, flexibility, problem solving. I'm not going to go through them all. These are just keywords. And the reason why I brought them here is so that you know what they are. But then when you're making your assessment, you have to go through each and every one of them and think, okay, communication. What have I done in my previous jobs or in my studies up to here that reinforce or support the claim that I am a communicative person? And the same for self-motivation, the same for leadership. It's not enough to say, oh, I have leadership skills, because people will help you. Okay, can you give me they will ask you, can you give me an example? And the kind of how you substantiate that makes a difference. So I have the list here so that you think about these keywords that alone mean nothing, but when coupled to real experience that you've been through, will sound credible and believable, of course. And then in terms of hard skills to include in your resume, this is again off the internet. These are the technical things. They don't have to be these, but things that we can do. And for instance, writing is very important these days, social media, but it might be important for a specific job, but not for others, of course. Programming languages for those interested in areas that use programming. Foreign languages, of course, knowing more than one language is more than richful to your CV, and other certifications that you might have and might be worth mentioning when applying for a specific job. I like to have this table where we specify what we have. So in terms of soft skills, we write down, I am proactive, I have leadership skills, and then what is it supported by? And that is a really great mental exercise to get to know yourself. The first time I did this, I looked at this list and I thought, oh, I definitely have leadership skills. I definitely have problem solving skills. But then when I was training for interviews, I thought I need to come up with something. I can't just say that. And of course, this was 10 years ago. Obviously, you obviously wouldn't wonder. You'd go ahead and think about it. But to have it written down to me helps visualize it and helps train it for it to become really natural when we're presenting ourselves to somebody. The same with hard skills. You cannot just say I'm proficient in some programming language, but you can support it because you made some work during university that used a specific language, or you worked previously for a specific time for a given company that used a specific language, that kind of thing. But if you have it written down, I find that it helps a lot to visually see how much we can do. Because this is the other thing that I've seen PhD students say is that, oh, the only thing I can do is research. And that is so vague, because when you're doing research, when you're doing a PhD, there are so many skills that you're developing at the same time. And it's really a shame if you're not aware that you're developing, that list of skills that I showed 2 slides ago, all of them at the same time, every day during your PhD. But the only problem is if you're not aware of them, then you can't use them, but you are developing all of those. And so the third part of the wheel is where I'm heading. It's where I want to be, basically. And if I want to be somewhere, then there must be skills and experience or additional training that I need to have to get there. So this is why I wrote based on the job description of the desired role. So say that you want to be the CEO of a biotech. That's not a silly example. There's no reason why we wouldn't want to be CEOs if we wanted to. But we need to be realistic. We need to know what soft skills are needed, what hard skills are needed, what kind of experience we need. And if we don't have it yet, how do we get there? That's the development plan for ourselves. And when you have these 2 tables side by side, one gives you the acquired skills that you've acquired from different settings, and the other gives you your strategy for professional development. When you have those side by side, you can see what you can offer and what you want to have. And when you make an application for a job, this is 2 things that you need to be very mindful of. Like I said, the incentive on the other side is to hire somebody that will help them achieve their goals. And you can be that person by showing what you have in terms of soft skills and hard skills. But you're also not here just to be an employee. You're also here, and you chose this company because of a reason or a number of reasons. So it's important to have that at the tip of your tongue, especially because nowadays in interviews they will ask you, why do you want to work with us? And it's more credible when you give a believable reason, not just because I need a job and you seemed like nice people. You have to say, because I want to get there. This is my purpose. This is what drives me. I want to work with patients. I want to work with, or I help the pharmaceutical company have really robust documents that will increase the chances of a given submission of a drug to be successful, and therefore reach patients indirectly, this kind of thing. So back to the full wheel of assessment. This is, like I said before, this is something that you always have to keep doing, even after you get promoted, even after you've been doing something for years, this is something that because you keep adding to what you are, you keep adding to what you can do. And obviously, if you want to progress, you keep adding to your future steps. And it's very important to seek feedback from other people like friends, colleagues, mentors, because sometimes people from outside can give us a clearer view or a perspective that we hadn't considered about our abilities. I've learned a lot from asking feedback from colleagues because I can see myself as a person with a set of skills, but other people might see me in a different way, or in a way that is similar but actually even stronger than I thought. And so there have been a few opportunities or occasions where some colleague of mine makes a comment that makes me feel, oh yeah, I am like that. And I can use it to improve my self-assessment. That's very very good information. And then when you have all of this, when you know exactly what you're like, what you're looking for, how you're going to sell yourself again because of who you are and what you want to do and why you are the perfect candidate, you go for it. And that this exercise that I have been describing in the last slides will definitely make you, they will definitely make it easier for you to write a compelling cover letter, because this will be your presentation card, kind of. This will be the first interaction you have with someone who is hiring. And it needs to be tailored for each application, and it needs to clearly show why the company wants you specifically to help them achieve their objectives. And because the cover letter is, like I said, the first contact they have with you, and there's only a few seconds that they will spend deciding whether you'll move on to the next step or whether you'll be in this pile of rejected. It needs to be really compelling, not flashy, but compelling. It's ideally the hiring manager will start reading and become interested and want to know more and more. Hopefully, I have given you kind of an overview on several topics. The most important message that I have today, well, besides the idea that there's a lot of career opportunities outside, and I've only covered, a tiny little bit of them, is the others, the other most important thing that I wanted to share is that while other things are about ourselves, like art, science is a team effort. Science is we. So I'd like to end with this note because this is really, really important for me. And I thought that it would make sense to you as well. And you can find me at this email below anytime. I am not always super responsive, but I never forget the emails that people send me. I might answer to you right away or a couple of months later, but I will definitely answer you. Thanks very much for your attention and your time. Q&A.
Thank you so much. Very inspiring talk, as always.
Thanks. I hope I didn't speak too fast.
I could ask some questions, but we will have, if you don't mind, an extra 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
For the questions, and we have a lot of questions in the chat box, so
okay,
maybe I will pass to that. We have a question from Rafaela. Are you there? Would you like to ask your question directly?
Hello. Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Fernandes. That was a great presentation. So I would like to know, what advice would you give to international PhD students who are graduating and seeking to work in the US, especially given the recent changes in immigration policies and cuts in education? So how do we stay motivated to pursue a career in science, particularly in the industry sector? Thank you so much.
Well, it's true. Many things are changing for people based in the US. But one of the things that I'm keeping an eye on that, of course, but one of the things that I see happening is that many pharmaceutical industries, for many reasons, including, political reasons, there are turning more and more to other countries, including European countries, like I said, for many reasons, not just this one. And so because of this turn, many pharmaceutical industries have decided to start hiring remotely more and more. So I definitely believe that where you are located does not limit you anymore, or not so much as it used to do just a few years ago. So we don't have to go back too many years to see how geography was really limiting or limitating. Before COVID, things were not that easy in terms of remote working. Nowadays, it isn't so. It's not. It's much better than it was before. It's not yet perfect because obviously it depends on the kind of job you're applying to. But I would think that it depends on what you want to do. Like I said in one of my slides, it's science and its careers. It's a world of possibilities, especially for global citizens. So if you want to stay in the US, then you'll have a lot of remote opportunities for sure, including in Europe and in vice versa. So many, like I don't think I said that, but I work for J&J in the United States. So my job is remote. I work with with people across Europe, but also on the other side of the Atlantic. So if you want to stay in the US, remote would help you. If you don't want to stay in the US, but want to keep, having opportunities related to the US, because obviously knowing how developed the industry is in this country, you might still want to consider remote. If not, because some people simply don't like remote work, there's plenty of opportunities rising now as pharmaceutical companies tend to come to Europe and other places. Not sure that answered your question, but it depends on what you want. If you want to stay in the US, or even if you don't, remote work might be a great option because it takes away the barrier of geography. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joana. So moving forward, we have a question from Kobe. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Dr. Fernandez, for a very informative talk. So my question is for someone who wants to pursue the MSL position. I'm currently finishing up my 4th year of my PhD, hoping to graduate in the spring of next year. And so I've started to look at a few position postings for MSL, and I've noticed that they usually require a few years of experience in that position or in some sort of patient-facing interaction. So I was wondering what positions would you suggest a newly PhD grad should pursue in order to transition later on into an MSL position? Would that be a CRA position, or is there another sort of entry level position?
Well, first of all, the disclaimer that I'm not an MSL, so I wouldn't be the best person to make that advice. But from what I've seen from other colleagues, it's obviously if you're looking at job adverts that require previous years of experience, then you're probably looking at something that you're not yet qualified to apply to. But there are entry level positions, so you should try and find those. But if I know that across several types of job roles, the entry level positions are not that common. They're not that frequent, especially within pharmaceutical companies. They tend to go for people with more experience. So if you need to find or to get that experience from somewhere else, then definitely I would say get in touch with MSLs and try to see what they're, if you don't even have to talk to people. Sometimes you can just look at their LinkedIn and see what path they chose, what path they had to until they got to that position. I know people who got an MSL position straight off their PhD. So they were fresh off academia and found an entry level one. So the entry level positions, like I said, they're rare, so they will be. It's a matter of luck sometimes in terms of timing, but it's very important to prepare for jobs that will ask for certain levels of experience. So I would definitely get in touch with MSLs and try to understand what their path looks like. But yes, for sure, a CRA, the CRA role could put you into that kind of interaction with patients that would serve as a starting point. But don't focus only on CRA roles, because there are several in parallel that also have interaction with patients, etc. And also make sure to remember that MSLs are supposed to work with doctors and key opinion leaders, not so much with patients. So have that in mind when you make a little bit more research about what is needed for MSLs. And if you want specific names, I can give you a few names from people that I know and others that I follow on LinkedIn, and I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you got in touch with them and to know more about how they got their position.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And please, I wanted to ask not to be called Dr. Fernandes. I'm fine with Joanna. I don't like when people call me doctor. Sorry.
So the next question is from Barbara.
Hi, Joana. Thank you for the presentation. So, do you recommend any specific courses or certifications for PhD students looking, for example, for your position? I would ask for MSL, but as you said, you are not MSL. So, for medical writer, did you take any specific course that you really recommend?
No. I am asked this question a few times. The only thing, well, in general, no, because you don't have to have some sort of post-graduation to become an MSL or a CRA or a medical writer or what have you, as long as you have, the requirements of a specific jobs position. But it's always a good idea to follow, like I said, people that have those roles that we wish for. And also in the case, I'm not sure about MSL, but for instance, in medical writing, both in the US and in Europe, we have the medical writing associations. So these are institutions that prepare conferences twice a year with a lot of workshops, and for both wannabe writers and experienced writers, these are very rich experiences they can have, because they get to know a lot of other writers and learn about trends in the industry. So these are paid workshops, of course, but they're really informative, and they make sure that if you go for those, we stay up to date with what's going on and what's new. I would definitely go for it. That's the only thing that I would recommend. EMWA for Europe or AMWA for the US in terms of medical writing. Like I said, I'm not sure if there is a similar thing for other jobs, but this is a matter of trying to find out. If there is, definitely go for it, because these institutions basically reunite so many professionals that it's too rich of a population to ignore if you want to get advice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Due to the sake of time, I will just allow one extra question, and then we will wrap up the session. Paula Perez, will you like to ask your question, please? I can see that she's here. Doesn't have a mic, so I can read it. So just to give you a context, she's working in a startup biotech company, and she wants to train herself for further challenges in the future. So she's asking whether to do a course on project management or product management. But she isn't she doesn't understand exactly the difference. If you know anything about this type of courses, if you could give your opinion on them.
Again, perhaps not the best person to address this, but I'm thinking that for a biotech company, both things would be valuable. I don't work for a biotech, I've never have, but project management course is something that is never a waste of time, because project management is used everywhere, even in medical writing. So whatever skills you can get from a course like this, you'll be using them for sure in different settings. In terms of product management, that might be more specific, and that might be it depends on the type of biotech company you're thinking about applying to, or the kind of product you want to manage. So I don't have a lot to say about that. But I would say that if I had to choose between one or the other, in terms of how general and how likely it would be that I keep using one of them, it would definitely be the project management one. But by no means focus on this. Focus on what you think. So you're looking at working. No, sorry, you are already working at a startup. So try to check what kind of, if there are too many people with project management courses or too many with project management, if there's a difference between the number of people or the kind of expertise in these two areas, go for the one with the least focus, because you might become a real asset by having skills that other people don't have. Or go for something that you think will make more difference in your job. It depends on what your job is, etc. Sorry for the general reply, but I need more context, I suppose. But project management is never a waste of time, never.
So thank you so much, Joana.
Thank you all.
I think I will. We had some questions in the chat box, but there is no time for it. So I will invite the people to send a message to Joana, if you don't mind.
Yes, that's
If
totally
they
okay.
would like to have your feedback. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
your input. I think it was a really nice presentation, and
Thanks.
actually the questions also show that, because we had so many. And thank you for accepting to present this to us, and I hope to see you in the future.
Yeah, of course. Same. Likewise.
Thank
Have
you
a nice day.
everyone
How are
that
you?
joined.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.